How's it going, everyone? I'm just your standard everyday Canadian nerd here to give some insight and perspective into standard everyday American man's education of our Canadian healthcare system. Yes, it is a publicly funded healthcare system where if you get insulted by anything in this video, you can go to your local hospital, get your feelings checked for free. That's a joke, but also a truth. And today, being my therapy day, is a good chance to look at the healthcare system. And yes, if you look at his face right here in this, you're like, yeah, I mean, really? It's incredulous. Unbelievable. He's kind of blown away, surprised, shocked, all those things, much like we are when we find out about the American healthcare system. Well, my therapy today is not free. It has a price tag of $200. And so, this video being free and having no price tag, I request that you pay your part by just giving it a like, a subscribe, and maybe a share, because doing that promotes this video and my other videos to other viewers. And if we get enough subscriptions, YouTube will start paying me to do this, which means I'll be more incentivized to do more of this. And if you get a kick out of anything going on here, this is good for everyone. Go ahead, do that thing. And without further ado, let's get into the view. And here we go.
What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about how Canada's universal healthcare system works. Now, healthcare and the idea of universal healthcare is a very, very hotly debated and talked about thing in America.
Which baffles us Canadians because we like our universal healthcare. Universal. It's just national. Why is it called universal? I mean, it's not like we actually extend out into the universe or anything. Like, we barely even leave our solar system. We don't leave our solar system. We barely leave our... Moving on.
My God. Honestly, and I think most Americans would agree, Americans are not happy with the American healthcare system.
It must be an understatement.
For most people, they have kind of a thought about it that you can get great healthcare, you can get great services.
True.
You can get access to those health services for emergencies and to get the medicine and treatment you need.
But you gonna pay.
Then there's this whole insurance system that you have to pay for and hope that the insurance company will cover things that you need to live. And, pretty important. And in a lot of cases, Americans are left with crippling, outrageous debt and bills for procedures and things at the hospital that, for one, probably shouldn't cost that much, and yet you're charged an outrageous amount of money. And two, you're paying for the health insurance companies to help you cover the cost of your medical bills.
If they cover.
Yet sometimes they don't cover certain things. And most people, and I think Canadians are on top of this from what I understand, would agree that the point of a government, the point of taxes and a government, would to have health care.
Well, it's to take care of the citizens. Yeah.
That covers everybody in your country. That's the point of it. That's the point of having organized government, to help the people.
Especially since you have founding documents that say something along the lines of guaranteeing everybody's life and liberty. Guaranteeing life has a lot to do with keeping people healthy, keeping them living, without ruining them financially in the process. Let's continue.
And especially with their health care, yet that's not how it works in America. And a lot of Americans do point towards Canada and universal healthcare systems as an example, a shining example of why aren't we doing this?
And it boggles my mind even further because it's not like Canada is the only example of healthcare that takes care of their citizenry. I really think the United States is lagging in this respect, and they call it socialism without really understanding why we do it.
Why aren't we providing care for everyone and leaving them with money, not in financial debt and desperation in the process?
Yeah, looking at this YouTube page right here, the top comment is Tim Fennell, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, that he's been dealing with cancer for 3 years, countless tests, scans, chemo, radiation therapy, massive surgery, 10 days at the hospital, immunotherapy, never felt like he was waiting for care, felt like the quality was world class, and what has he paid for? Parking. Yes, parking. That's what we pay for, and maybe prescription medications if our company or private insurance doesn't handle that. It's simple.
So it's obviously a pretty touchy subject in America, and I'm actually very interested to see how it actually works in Canada. The idea of a universal healthcare system. If you Google that, universal healthcare.
I, again, don't understand the concept of universal because, yes, it covers all of the nation, but it doesn't cover all of the planet. It doesn't cover all of the solar system. It doesn't cover any other part of the galaxy. For now, maybe in like 200 years, the universal aspect of it will change, but that's more like in 1,000 years from what I know about sciences. Our thrust capabilities aren't even moving on.
Thank you, Google. All people have access to health services they need, when and where they need them, without financial hardship. Exactly.
Yeah.
That is absolutely how it should work.
Like, I thought paying $3 for parking last week when I went to the hospital was outrageous. This is $3.
You would think. So I'm really interested to see what this has to say about how it works in Canada.
When you hear people
Slowly.
talk about healthcare in America, there's one country that seems to get a good amount of attention. It's a single-payer healthcare system, kind of like the Medicare for All plans that some well-known Democrats have been promoting. In fact,
Okay.
the system's unofficial name is also Medicare. It has universal coverage, it has relatively cheaper drug prices than the United States, and it also has reports of long waiting times and endless reams of red tape.
Really? Wait, we're talking about Canada here.
So the long waiting times have to do with medical triage. If you are really in trouble, you don't have giant wait times. If you are going to live and you just need to be reassured of that, you're going to wait. And if it is a surgery with a wait list, yeah, you might have to wait a year or more to get that. But if it is life-affirming surgery, like having a brain tumor removed, it's going to happen as soon as it is medically possible.
Long wait times?
And it also care. It has universal coverage, it has relatively cheaper drug prices than the United States, and it also has reports of long waiting times and endless reams of red tape.
Is that true?
Okay, so I have been in the mental health system for a while now, trying to... It's long overdue. We all need help once in a while. And one of the programs... No, let's skip that. Just move into hematology. Getting a blood doctor to look at my blood and my overall health and say, why are you missing red blood cells? 1 year waiting list. But I can get someone who is certified in hematology and is a general practitioner in 1 month. It's long lines when it's not life-threatening.
Those who have had experience with this, the basic universal coverage, fantastic.
Yeah.
Cheaper drug prices,
Wonderful.
perfect. Long lines and red tape, that's something that Americans who are against universal health care point to
Yeah.
as an arguing point, saying, well, if everyone has access to healthcare at any moment, anything they need, everyone will just show up for anything all the time, leading to
Yeah.
long lines and red tape. So,
And that's how the lines get long, especially when someone is having an anxiety related issue. They think they're having a heart attack, they think their lungs are collapsing, but they're actually having a panic attack. Well, unfortunately, having them sit in the triage waiting room to calm down has the opposite effect. But at the same time, it's not life threatening. Now, I had a friend who just over a year ago was having a headache that wouldn't go away for over a week. He goes to the hospital, they get him in an MRI the same night. He gets shipped off to another hospital that same day. He's in for brain surgery, getting a tumor removed in less than a week.
oh, is that a valid argument, or is this an exaggeration? Is it absolutely true? I don't know.
You've probably guessed which country we're talking about: Canada. Canada's healthcare system is playing a larger role in America's political discourse as the
Yeah.
2020 presidential elections heat up. Progressives on the left love pointing to Canada as an equitable and efficient healthcare system.
So this video goes back to 2019, I guess? That. Let's see how well this ages.
They do.
Conservatives, on the other hand, use Canada as an example when warning about the dangers of socialized medicine and unchecked bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You have some people in America pointing to Canada and universal health care as, oh, this example of how great it is. And you have others who point to the same exact thing and say, no, no, for this, and this reason, it doesn't work. But our system works. And I think the majority of Americans would say universal health care. Now, I don't know exactly how it's paid for in Canada. I assume by taxes or
Yes, you just learned this yesterday. Wow.
something. Would work. So, but I'm willing to accept new information as it comes. I'm an open book, but that's just how the facts present themselves to me. I could very well be wrong, but maybe I'm not.
So, how different really is Canada's healthcare system from what's going on in the United States?
Okay, yeah.
In 2017, it's estimated that Canada spent around 10.4% of its GDP on healthcare. By comparison, the United States is estimated to have spent about 17.2% of its GDP that year.
Wow.
The OECD
So we're spending a lot more money on healthcare as a nation, yet it seems like the average cost of healthcare, well, I think I'm about to learn that right here, but the cost of healthcare for an American, it's not free. That's the whole problem. It's
Right.
actually a lot of money, and you're still paying the insurance company even when you receive no care. You're just constantly paying for health insurance. Anyway, I'll allow this to keep going.
estimates that Canada spent around $4,500 USD per person in 2017.
Okay.
In the United States, though, the figure is expected to be at least double that, at $10,000 per person.
Strange. Although this does mean that the government is it's paying that money towards hospitals or pharmaceutical companies or something like that. It's not literally giving it to an American person to spend on healthcare for themselves.
That's like corporate benefits. That's incentives in the United States because it's not for treatment.
So the whole problem is an American can show up to a hospital, receive emergency care. They'll get the care. They will receive it. So that's wonderful. That's great. It's just later when they go home and get that bill in their mailbox that is for $50,000, for a CAT scan or something. That's the problem.
And people having to choose whether they buy their life-saving medication or they buy groceries for the month.
Out-of-pocket spending is also lower in Canada. On average, Canadians spent around $650 USD per person in 2016.
That's amazing. That would be fantastic. That's something most Americans, that's still a lot of money to a lot of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, which is sadly extremely common in America. But this $650 something a year would be doable.
So that's like approximately $50 a month for parking, medication, and elective surgeries. And I think that's absolutely acceptable.
For almost all Americans. That won't ruin your life, you know. So that's actually great.
Canadians spent around 650 USD per person in 2016. The
Yeah.
average for Americans was around $1,100 that year.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's that low, the average, actually.
Yeah.
Canada still spends more than the average of all 36 OECD countries, which comes in around $3,800 per person and 8.8% of GDP. Despite
Okay.
spending less than the United States, Canada's Medicare system ensures citizens have universal coverage for medical needs that are deemed essential,
Yeah.
something the US hasn't accomplished.
Right, that's kind of the crux of the whole situation, isn't it? Just that basic, even getting that basic universal health coverage where
Just basic
everyone
care.
in the country can get these essential healthcare services when they need them. I think that's the one thing that everyone would say should happen.
Yeah.
Canada also has comparable or better health outcomes than the US, even though it spends less money. But compared to other countries, Canada's healthcare system has room for improvement.
Okay.
Researchers looked at the rate of deaths that could have been prevented with proper access to care across 11 countries.
Okay.
Canada ranked 7th on the list, while America was last. We can see the same trends in infant mortality rates. Canada outperforms the US, but other countries like Sweden and Australia have much lower infant mortality rates than Canada.
Yeah, well, I guess for the sake of this video, we're just talking about access. I think across the board, living in, pretty well-developed countries and nations like America and Canada, you're going to get access to a certain standard of care, which is going to
Yeah.
be pretty darn good compared
That's right.
to the rest of the world. So that's kind of the baseline that I'm talking about. And I'm really only referring to the cost of the care for the most part,
Fair.
rather than the quality of the care. Because I think
Well, you get what you pay for, that's for sure.
you could argue that the quality of the care is probably on average pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Canadians also live longer than Americans. Canada's average life expectancy is among the highest of all the countries and is nearly 4 years higher than the US.
Wow.
That's like a blessing and a curse for some people, right?
Additionally, Canada's maternal mortality rate is almost 4 times lower than that of the United States. And
Wow.
more
Okay.
Americans die of heart disease and stroke than Canadians. So
Well, yeah.
Oh, God.
I mean, the obesity epidemic alone can explain that, right?
Tell me about it. Yeah, that's another sad thing about Americans. We're pretty unhealthy. I'll admit it. I'm a bit unhealthy myself. It's just part of the culture. A lot of heart disease, issues with just
Diabetes.
developing proper health habits, whether that's eating or exercise, is a problem
Two of them.
in America.
how does Canada manage to spend less money than the United States while having a more effective healthcare system?
Yeah.
Canadian Medicare is a publicly funded model with private delivery. The system was
Okay.
established in order to ensure equity among citizens regardless of people's ability to pay.
Exactly. That's one of the major cruxes of this, is if you're living in America or Canada, if you are extremely rich, that shouldn't set you up to have much better access to healthcare than someone who is not well off.
Of course, with the two-tier medical system, that is definitely something that happens regardless. And I think we all know that if you can afford to have regular blood transfusions from, I don't know, an 18-year-old blood relative, then, yeah, spend that $2 million a year. Yes, that's an actual figure from some tech guy who, well, he shares his blood with his teenage son and shares that blood with his grandfather or father. Who's like, anyway, it's $2 million a year, USD.
It's already gonna. Like, let's be honest, if you're rich, you can travel anywhere in the world, get access to the best health professionals on the planet. But the poorest individuals should all have access to that baseline standard of care.
Yes.
It was also created in order to keep administrative costs low.
No private plan can take cognizance of the family's ability to pay. Only a government can levy taxes on that basis.
Tommy Douglas, Canadian hero.
All Canadians receive their health coverage through Medicare, which is run at the local level by
Okay.
each province under federal supervision.
So basically, the health ministry in the capital in Ottawa determines what procedures are going to be covered, what we're going to pay for it, what pills we're going to cover on our list. These are decisions that are made separately by insurance companies, basically, in the United States.
That's
Yes, exactly. So this is kind of made on a level of the local government of what will be covered, whereas in the United States, it's all decided by insurance companies,
So it's the equivalent of states' rights.
which is never a good spot to be in.
T.R. Reid, author of the book The Healing of America. He traveled the world exploring different healthcare systems and how well they work.
In Canada, everybody has the same treatment. It would drive them nuts if George got better health care than Sam did.
And that's where Alberta's two-tier medical system does cause a lot of contention. And your average citizen is neutral on that opinion because we think that if you can afford to get to the front of the line, that is good for you. But we also don't like line cutters.
That's not acceptable in Canada.
Yeah.
There's some variation on what is covered based on province, but most medically necessary care is covered with no out-of-pocket cost.
That's fantastic. That is huge. That's the goal. That's great. No out-of-pocket costs to that necessary care. That care that every human
right.
being needs, whatever that may be. Yeah.
There are some universal exceptions. Prescription drugs are not considered essential under Medicare. Dental,
Okay.
mental health, and optometry are also not covered unless they are considered medically necessary.
Correct.
Because Medicare
Okay.
does not cover everything,
That's interesting to know. That's an important distinction, because I did think it covered prescription drugs for one thing. Surprised to hear
No.
that. I'm not so surprised about the dental. Mental health, I probably would have thought that was covered. Optometry, kind of a specialty.
So mental health is covered up to a certain degree. Like if you go to a hospital because of a mental episode, you don't have to pay. If you see a psychologist that's in the network, you don't have to pay. But if you want a psychotherapist, you're going to have to pay.
Usually not life-threatening, so I kind of get that.
covered unless they are considered medically necessary. Because Medicare does not cover everything, most Canadians also buy private health insurance through their employers to supplement out-of-pocket expenses. They
That's the group insurance that I refer to sometimes.
cannot, however, use that private insurance to purchase care that is covered under the government plan.
If there's any treatment
So, interesting. Interesting. There's like a government plan, and then there's also private insurance. It's kind
Yes.
of a combination. Yeah, that's interesting.
or procedure,
Just care that is covered under the government plan.
if there's any treatment or procedure or surgery that the system covers under its rules, then you can't buy it privately.
Right.
This is because, you know how in America we hate this notion of socialized medicine, whatever it means, that's really bad.
Yeah.
In Canada, the bad thing is what they call two-tier medicine. That is, they don't want rich people getting better care than poor people. That would be terrible. That would violate their basic egalitarian values. In America, we
Huh, interesting. Well, in America, it's it's very widely accepted that a rich person will get access to better health care 100% of the time
Yeah.
because they're rich and they can do whatever. They can just throw money at the problem, travel wherever, get pay whatever private doctor or private institution they want anywhere to perform whatever they want.
Private as in exclusive if desired. Yeah.
So they can definitely do that in America. Happens all the time. Interesting in Canada that's like a important principle to Canadians and healthcare. That's cool. Ensuring that Canadians physically are not able to purchase that kind of care because it will be covered by the government plan across the board, and there's no option on that. That's a cool principle.
Kind of take it for granted that a rich kid is going to get better treatment than a poor kid. That's kind of standard. In Canada, that would be taboo. That's a sin.
In 2015, private funding
Wow.
such as household out-of-pocket costs and private insurance spending accounted for about 30% of healthcare spending in Canada.
Okay.
Despite the majority of healthcare being publicly funded, most hospitals and doctors' offices are privately owned and operated.
Yeah.
Doctors who own their own private practices are considered contractors who bill the government insurance fund for their services.
Yeah.
The government is not their boss.
The doctor,
I was wondering how that worked. Okay.
That's complicated, and the family doctor who runs their own clinic doesn't get paid what they're due because they have to pay for all their overheads because they are contractors.
Okay.
are not allowed to practice outside of the system. They can either practice completely in the government Medicare system or completely out of it. And there are very few places in Canada where a doctor can make a living without taking the Medicare patients. And therefore, for most people, it's the only choice.
Okay.
Despite having universal coverage, the system still has some problems.
Ah.
Wait times are longer in Canada than the United States. In
Is this true? And why is this?
a 2016 survey, 53% of Canadians said they were not able to get an appointment on the same or next day when they were sick or needed attention.
Okay, so when we're sick and get an appointment, that's accurate. Like, if I come down with some terrible cold, I call my doctor and I say, I think I have an infection. We get booked for like a week later, maybe. Maybe that same week, but it's not the same day. And that's just because they are booked up solid. They have to find a space. So they'll tell us, if you're that sick, go to the emergency. And then we get taken care of in less than 24 hours.
I mean, sure, this is a problem, but it's also a problem in America. Fortunately, in my personal experience, I haven't had to. I'm not at an age yet, and I've been lucky enough to not have to seek medical treatment very much for many things.
One time in my early 20s, I dislocated a shoulder, and I had a friend drive my car with me in it to the hospital, the emergency room. I don't remember how long I was there, but I'm sure I was waiting less than 2 hours. I got that shoulder looked at, I got a scan, I got it put back into place, I was educated how to relocate my shoulder if it gets dislocated again, and I still had time in the night for my friends to pick me up, and we partied all night long.
I did have a kidney stone once. That was probably the worst thing. And I was able to go drive to an emergency room and get treatment within less than an hour.
That's
So,
good.
I mean, very quickly. So, although I don't live in a major city,
I was in the nation's capital when that happened.
so I don't think from my personal experience I can speak to the average American's wait time as far as access to medical care. So I don't know on that one. I'd have to get the public opinion on that one.
The United States performed slightly better at 42%. Out of all of the
Yeah, there's still wait times, like for sure. So I feel like that's a problem. Both, maybe Canada has slightly worse.
I think that's a problem that you're going to meet anywhere. Like, let's think of Black Friday sales where there's lineups to get in the door. There's going to be lineups at your local liquor store to get out of the cash. Like, yeah, when there's a service that is popular, there's going to be a lot of people going to get that service, and there's going to be a lineup at your local drive-thru. Yeah.
But America still has it.
11 countries surveyed, Canada performed the worst in that category.
Oh.
30% of Canadians said they waited 2 months or longer to see a specialist,
Whoa.
compared to 6% in the United States.
Okay, that's like a specialist, though. That's the hematology story that I was saying earlier. And I'm still getting that blood issue investigated, and my follow-up appointment is next month.
Yeah, that's a lot. 2 months? What if you really need to see them? Like, what? does priority matter?
Yes.
In 2 months, a medical condition can be, you need to, that's, it's,
Yes, the first step when we go into an emergency room is triage. And when we see this through our family doctor, priority is set based on how important it is for life-saving treatment. If it's life-affirming treatment, it goes lower on the list. If it's life-improving treatment, it will go slightly higher. And if it's life-saving treatment, it goes right up to the top.
Sorry. Maybe I need to see a specialist. Oh, God. In 2 months, a lot can change in terms of a medical condition. So that surprises me. Goodness. I
It's
don't
all
think any
situational.
American would. If I heard someone say they had to wait 2 months to see someone about anything, basically, I would really scratch my head. I'd be like, what? Why? Why? Is your condition like the rarest condition on a planet Earth? Otherwise, you can pretty much see people when you need to see people.
Nearly 1 in
It's
5
appointments.
Canadians waited 4 months or more for elective surgery, while only 4% of American
Well, it's elective surgery, I guess.
Right.
4 months for an elective surgery.
Now, elective surgery also counts like a hip or knee replacement, and if you're waiting for a hip or knee replacement, it sure doesn't feel like it's elective. It feels like it's life important, improving, affirming, but you're not going to die from a sore knee. You're just going to kind of wish that you were dead. And unfortunately, that got worse after this video was made, because throughout the pandemic, COVID just ruined a lot of appointments and wait times, and Canadians are still waiting for their elective treatments because it just kept getting pushed back, and that's unfortunate. Let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's a surgery you're electing to do. It's not life-threatening.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter how long you wait. But 4 months, almost half a year, is pretty long.
Canadians waited
Yeah.
4 months or more for elective surgery, while only 4% of American respondents said the same. About
Yeah.
Pretty
Seems
good.
like, well, in America, there's a lot of money.
Right.
There's so much money in it for American health providers and private health providers and private
Yeah.
surgeries, and they're making a ton of money. So they're
That's it.
plenty willing to see you quick as possible.
Money
About
talks.
60% of Canadians find it difficult to access medical care in the evenings, on weekends, or during holidays without going to a hospital. These
Okay.
long wait times
Oh, yeah.
can lead to the overuse of the emergency room, where
Yeah.
half of Canadians said they've waited 2 hours or more to be seen.
It's a good system,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work that well in Canada, interestingly. In its own home country,
Really?
there are long waiting lines.
Huh.
There are constant stories about care being denied, or people just had to wait months just to see the doctor.
Now, in my experience, having to wait 2 hours in a waiting room to see a doctor over a thing is not a big deal. That's kind of what you expect. You say, oh, I gotta go to the hospital. I better call work and tell them I'm not coming in today or tomorrow. You bring a snack with you. You bring an entertainment of some sort, like a book, or you make sure that you have your charger for your phone with you. Bring headphones. You just gotta plan ahead. It's like going to the airport 5 hours before your flight. You gotta think about these things, or else you're gonna have a bad time.
Wow.
And I believe that's because the Canadians are too cheap about it. They just don't spend enough on healthcare to have a
Yeah.
lively system in some provinces like
Wow.
Saskatchewan.
I mean, maybe that's one benefit of
Yeah.
the American system,
You get what you pay for, absolutely.
is that we're willing to throw outrageous amounts of money at the problem, totally willing, to the point where it ruins people's lives having to get certain health care because they can't pay $100,000 for something. But
Yeah.
if the healthcare provider knows they're going to make $100,000 off you, then by golly, they're gonna see you real quick. They're gonna come on in. Yeah, we'll see you today.
That's
But
right.
that's not the problem in America. So interesting how Canada and America has kind of two sides of that coin.
Yeah.
Where this started, have shorter waiting times for both acute and elective treatment than most of the United States. So there are parts of Canada where it works.
That's the Alberta two-tier health system he was just talking about. Yeah.
Not all medical care is covered in Canada, which leads people to have significant out-of-pocket costs.
Oh.
Medicare does not classify prescription drugs as essential, which means they are not covered for many patients.
That seems a bit odd to me. I think there's a lot of instances where prescription drugs are critical to an individual's health.
In my experience, my private insurance or group insurance from my employment has always been a certain percentage. Like, usually they cover 80% of the costs, and I pay the 20% of the cost. And so a medical prescription can go from $50 right down to like $5-10.
No? Right? I'm surprised that's not a part of it.
There are some social programs to help Canadians pay for drugs, but the benefits vary by province. For example, Ontario provides prescription drug coverage for anyone under 24 years old who does not have private insurance. The province also has a drug program for people 65 and older.
Yeah.
Canadian pharmaceutical costs are also not as controlled as other countries. Canada spends approximately the same amount as the UK on pharmaceuticals, despite having only half the population. There are also no out-of-pocket caps on spending. In 2015, Canadians spent around $670 per capita on retail prescription drugs.
Is that per year? I mean, that's still not as bad as it seems in America.
Well, I suppose that's averages, right? Now, myself, I'm currently under 2 prescriptions that I pay for, and that's getting cut down to 1 soon. My most recent ex, on the other hand, had over 12 prescriptions to her name, so this is where averages balance out.
If you didn't have insurance in America and you were trying to buy prescription drugs, you could spend thousands and thousands a year on it. Yeah, wouldn't work.
Compared to the United
Yeah.
States per capita costs of roughly $1,000.
Uh-huh.
In 2016, 1 in 10 Canadians did not fill a prescription or chose to skip a dose due to cost.
Wow.
This is still significantly better than the United States, where
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, this is still a huge problem in the US as well.
nearly 1 in 5 people chose not to buy medication because of cost.
Yeah, an issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's horrible. I'm surprised by that. A lot of the time, prescription medication can be just as important as some kind of physical health service that you go in person for.
Despite the problems,
Yeah.
Canadians are proud of their healthcare system, but they do
Yes.
recognize it needs reform. 94% of Canadians surveyed said it was an important source of both personal and collective pride.
Yes.
But nearly
Good.
1 in 4 Canadians were concerned about whether they would be able to pay for all of the care they might need if they ever became seriously ill.
Oh, surprised it's that high, actually. So it's not perfect. It's very good.
You know, I've never worried about that. And I haven't always been employed. I'm not a rich man. I'm healthy in general, but of course, accidents happen and unexpected things pop up. I think my biggest financial worry comes to the type of thing that would prevent me from going to work. And so I have private insurance to cover that.
A lot better. Don't get me wrong.
Despite that concern, 45% of Canadians rated the overall quality of medical care in Canada as excellent or very good, and nearly
Alright.
3/4
That's
said
me.
the same of their personal care in the past year.
The
Yeah.
citizens are crazy about it. It's egalitarian. It treats everybody the same. That's
Yeah, I mean, it does seem good. And it seems like the people of Canada, for the most part, think it's good as well. And working, especially those critical fundamentals of it. Care for all to a certain standard.
Yeah.
As long as that remains true, most people are going to have a lot of pride in it.
And it's one thing that we feel sets us apart largely from our neighbors south of the border, and why we are proud to be Canadian.
The most important societal value in Canada is treating everybody equally. And the other thing they like about it is they know it's better than the U.S. system.
Yeah.
They have better outcomes,
Yeah.
they have better recovery rates from disease, they have longer life expectancy, and they pay less.
Yeah.
And man, they love being better than the U.S. That matters to me.
Okay. I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's true.
It is definitely better. So that was by CNBC. That was
American.
Nice. Very nice. That was
Huh.
3 years ago, 2019. So I don't know if this is somewhat out of date. A lot can happen in 3 years, but I'm sure the core fundamentals of this are pretty much the same.
The only thing that really changed from them then to now would be the wait times, and the wait times have grown. And again, that is because of the COVID repercussions.
In which case, I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. What the heck?
Should be.
Healthcare, man, probably one of the most hotly talked about things in America. But at the same time, we have accepted it. We accept it. That's the sad thing. We accept our system the way it is. Because, politicians have tried to change it for so long now without much success. There have been, don't get me wrong, there have been successes
Obamacare.
in getting more people access to the healthcare they need,
Yeah.
especially for those living in poverty, those who are less fortunate. Getting them access to healthcare
It's important.
in a way that they aren't living in debt for the rest of their life is kind of one of the major things. And even if you're not living on that level of poverty, you can still get stuck with a $70,000 bill if you happen
Surprise.
to, contract some sort of heart problem or
Break
need
an arm.
a lot of diagnosis and scans for things.
Surprise cancer.
Most people will turn down an ambulance if it comes. If someone's calling an ambulance to come pick you up because you fell off your motorcycle or something, some people say, no, don't.
I remember one time having to take a ride in an ambulance. It was a $70 charge, and I'll gladly pay that again if I have to, but most of the time I'm going to the hospital. I'm just going to pay for parking.
Just drive me there in the car because they're worried about the bill. And that's just horrible. It's bad. It's not good. So Canada, there seem to be a couple points of contention on things they could do better, but by and large seem way better. I don't know what we're doing with our lives here in America, but it's good to see that somebody has a grip on the situation. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video,
Or this
if you
one.
enjoyed this reaction,
this
feel
one,
free to give it a
react
like
to him.
or leave a comment.
Like,
And if you're
comment.
interested in more videos like this,
Or
me
this,
reacting to Canadian
maybe my
culture
cat.
and news,
I don't know.
and places and
Comment
things
what
that
more you
I've
want.
never seen or heard about,
Yeah.
feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Yes, thank you very much for watching. I hope the sound has been better on this video than in my past videos. You may see that I've moved the microphone. I should be getting rid of the echo, and I think I've properly balanced the sound between Tyler and myself. But of course, if you want something more, if you want something different, if you want something changed, if you want something else, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this even a little bit as much as I have, and I hope you all just keep being awesome. Bye. Science. Spirit. Life. Nerd Pope King.